Welcome to the WellPlayed DLC podcast, Australia's juiciest gaming podcast. I am Zach Jackson. Joining me is James Wood,
Hi, gamers.
Adam Ryan,
Hello.
and Nathan Hennessy.
Greetings.
That's the one. How are we all this
Timing was good this week, but the
Yeah.
tone was what fucked me. Yeah.
It's different every week, and
Yep.
I never know what to expect.
Owen was what fucked him.
How we going? How are we feeling this week?
Mug-
Mate, energized. Energized wouldn't even be able to begin to describe how I'm feeling. The warmer weather is creeping in, and it means my afternoon walks are not just filled with like rain and wind and like body chill. So I'm feeling good, man. I almost worked up a little bit of sweat on my afternoon walk today. It was great.
Yeah, mate, you're going to start getting real swampy between them legs soon.
Yeah, boy. I got the pins out and everything. It was a wonderful time.
Do you
Really
wear the Manscapes, with the bamboo breathable fabric?
I've got them on right this second. Do you want me to show you?
Yeah, treat those plums, don't you?
Yeah,
Nice and
definitely do,
cozy.
mate. Absolutely.
Question for you.
My palms are sweaty. Is it hot in here, boys, or are we just excited tonight?
I'm excited. It's also
just the energy.
hot. I do have a question.
so
Actually, this
sweaty.
is maybe a question more aimed at James because he's a connoisseur of this kind of drink. But so yesterday I'm at the cafe, right? So I've texted Anna. I'm like, I'm gonna walk past this coffee joint that's pretty good. Do you want me to get you a drink? She's like, yeah, iced coffee. I'm like, cool. But then she goes skinny milk, right? So I get there and I order iced coffee for me with ice cream because I'm a fucking full cream motherfucker. And then they ask
You have a
me,
history of diabetes in the family, mate?
not yet.
Keep
but then-
going.
Not yet.
But then they asked me, do you want ice cream in the second one? And my brain just collapsed. I was like, I feel like
What?
yes is the answer,
What?
but the skinny milk is what threw me. It's like, do you go ice cream with the skinny milk, or is the skinny milk
Can you
saying
do
no?
some
I
skinny
want to,
ice cream.
I want to keep it lean. Like, you know what I mean? And then Anna didn't respond, so then I picked a lane, and fucking drove into a wall. But
Wait, so did you get the ice cream?
think
No.
you did. What?
Ah.
yeah, see, and then she calls me a fuckwit because she goes, well, that's a nice coffee with ice cream. If I wanted a nice latte, I would have ordered a nice latte. I'm like, well, you
She's
fucking.
savage.
She does kind of have you there, actually.
I
Because a
agree.
nice latte is a different drink.
I agree. I do agree with you, but it was the skinny milk that threw me. Like, I was like, I don't know if you're keeping
Yes.
it lean.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause, like,
what
if
is the
I'm gonna get a
intention with the
scoop of-
skinny milk? I get it.
Exactly. Like, if you're getting a scoop of ice cream in a drink, then who cares about the additional 40 calories from the full cream milk at that point, or the skim milk?
Correct.
Like, yeah.
because I then said, look,
I'm with Zach.
Yeah.
I think the skinny milk implies that you are trying to quote unquote keep it lean. So therefore, I think I would have dodged the ice cream. I'm with you.
Yeah.
100%
and I
with you.
did. I did offer. I was like, look, you're more than welcome to have mine. Does that have, does that have full cream milk?
Man.
It does. No, don't want it.
Nah, she needs to sort of
Can I
fucking
just scoop my
priorities
ice
out,
cream
mate.
out for you, babe?
Nah.
I thought
Of
that was a nice touch, the fact that you offered.
course,
Good
mate.
man.
I'm not. I'm not the monster that you think I am.
We all know you. Don't try to bullshit us, mate.
Fair.
We've been around the block.
Anyway, what's going on in your world? Any exciting little stories? Adam, you had your flight delayed again. Unlucky.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for your Melbourne weather, mate. Really appreciated it. We were meant to leave at like 8:15, and then we didn't actually touch down in Melbourne until almost 12:30, and I didn't get to my sister's house and into a bed until past 1 a.m. So that was a great way to kick off my weekend. Loved it.
Have you-
Really loved it.
I always wonder if the whole like the weather's shit thing is just kind of like me at work when I'm like, the kegs out and too bad, guys, come back later.
I mean, it's Jetstar, so they kind of say they have a list of different reasons as to why shit's delayed. Planes not
Pilot
here.
sneezing, fuck.
we're missing paperwork. It's like, yeah, thank God, because the plane does run off paperwork. So I'm really glad that you're making sure it's all there.
Mm.
No, I know. Budget airline, you get what you pay for. I get it.
It
But
was
I
very, very windy that
don't
day,
agree,
though.
actually. I
Oh.
think that if you pay for a service, even if it is a budget form, but the budget form is in the shit seat, it's in the no food, it's in the bad, vibe of the plane, whatever. It's not in the service not working. There are different things.
James, babe. Now I do agree with you.
Bless
do.
the idealism.
But you're not living in reality when you're saying these things. You're trying to project your wants and your needs onto this. It has nothing to do with it.
Well, if my
Come back
wants
to
and
reality.
needs are
Adam,
for
right,
a
we don't
fair and
squander.
equitable society, Adam, then I think maybe you're the one that needs to come up to my level.
We don't
Yeah, look.
squander dreams like that here at WellPlayed, Adam.
Do we meet in the middle and just fly Virgin from now on? Is that what
That's
we
what
do?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
But I do think the weather was poor.
Oh yeah, to be
It was-
fair, the weather was completely
After all
dog
that,
shit.
yeah.
It was pretty windy that day. I think it was the day there was
Yeah.
like a tornado warning for Melbourne.
Yeah, there was like golf ball
tornado,
sized
sorry.
hail. So I mean, kind of fair, but also don't be a pussy. Just fly through it. I don't care. She'll be right. I'm
Just
sure
fly
we'll make
above
a
it,
better plane.
actually. Fly above the clouds.
Just
You won't get the
fly
fucking
above it.
hail. Duh. Fucking hell.
That's why they pay you the big bucks, mate.
That's why they pay me the big dollars indeed. All right, shall we get stuck into it? Who's been playing any video games? I've got nothing for you other than the content.
Oh, bumper. Well, I don't have much to say. Been dabbling with Silent Hill 2 with April on the couch. We're playing it all on the hardest difficulty, which has given us a very interesting perspective of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting to hear what WellPlayed's final verdict will be on that game. I will not have the final say.
Very
I really
keen
don't
to
want to
hear.
take too much on it now. I'll come back to it later.
It's a very silent themed content show tonight, if you know what I mean.
I mean, horror maybe, but silence
Nothing
is not
spookier
a
than
theme
silence.
as such.
I don't know. We just
Oh, I
easiest-
see what we're doing. Okay, yeah, I'm back on board.
Well, yeah, actually 2 out of 5. That's not bad.
Adam,
Anyway,
you've-
I've been playing the Tomb Raider remasters.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, the
What brought that
Aspire. I've got a mate who's really into Tomb Raider, and so I got the spiel, and now I've decided that I might also want to be into Tomb Raider. So
Okay.
far, I'm basically doing like 1 or 2 chapters, I guess, per session because I find the fussiness of it very fussy.
Correct.
And
Yes,
so
it
I can
is.
only engage with it on that level for so long. But look, I'm intrigued. My plan is to kind of get through this, and then we'll do the next collection in February when that comes out, and then play the trilogy, which is really what I'm most excited to get back to and sort of see how I feel about those as an adult, I guess.
Wait, so you are planning on playing 4, 5, and 6, like the trilogy, the second trilogy when that does come out?
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
Revelations, Angel of Darkness, Chronicles.
And you've played those before?
No,
I have.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I
I
played
meant
a lot of
the
Chronicles.
other trilogy, the new trilogy. I played
Yeah.
before.
I
Okay, cool.
really didn't fuck with the new trilogy at all.
Mm,
I'm a long time Tomb Raider head.
right.
Are they
okay.
making new Tomb Raider games? Do we know?
Yes.
Are they? Okay, they are.
Yes.
All right, you've heard it here.
We're
Allegedly.
I'm very surprised we haven't heard anything as yet.
Mm.
Who owns it? Is it still Crystal?
Crystal?
Crystal is still working on it, but they've the
It's
publishing
owned
rights
by
have
Square
moved.
Enix.
Mm.
Yeah, the public. Hang on,
Mm.
I'll
And they
fact check
booted-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
Mm.
little check on that one.
Because it was Eidos Montreal, which was then bought out by Square Enix. Square Enix got rid of them, and fuck where they ended up now.
They're with oh mate,
The big one.
Thanks.
Tencent,
Thank you.
Embracer.
nah, the other
No,
one, Embracer.
Embracer.
All right, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is Embracer.
Mm.
May never
Well,
see the
that'll
light
be
of day then,
cancelled.
my friends.
Oh well.
All right.
Just before we move on from Tomb Raider, how'd you find the controls? That's what I'm curious about.
So I dabbled with the classic controls. I've switched over to modern just because it I need to get through this somehow kind of thing. And the
Yeah.
camera controls I find quite useful. It's It's less that the controls are rough. It's more that the level design requires such precision engagement
Certainly.
that it doesn't really matter how you're controlling it. It's going to be fiddly. So,
Yeah.
Did you lock the butler in
That's
the
how
freezer?
I remember it.
what?
Did you lock the butler in the freezer?
I don't know. I'm in like an
I think you
ancient
can do
temple
that.
fighting dinosaurs right now, so I don't know what you're referencing.
The butler in the freezer, I don't think that's in the first one, though, is it? Is that the second or
Yeah,
third?
it's the first one.
Is it the first?
It's
Yeah.
in the first one, yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's right.
Okay, when you're going around the mansion, your little free
Oh, okay.
roam.
Not up to that yet, so
Is-
I will let you know.
It's at the start,
Big
isn't it?
fan.
I thought, yeah, you can just go to that from the menu, I thought.
Oh, the Lara's home
Yes.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, no, I haven't touched that yet. So,
There must be a trophy for that, surely.
oh, surely. But the trophies in this
100%.
game are nightmarish, so I'm not going for them.
Isn't there like 250 of them or something?
Mm-hmm. And they're all like
What?
sicko freak trophies. It's wrong. Yeah.
Mm,
Wowee.
Ugh.
yeah, right. Good stuff. All right, are we getting straight into the content?
Absolutely.
Okay.
James,
Okay.
kick us off.
Yeah. Silent Hill 2. Finally. Finally, we're ready to do this.
Let's have it.
Yes. So this is going to feel a little redundant, but this is the Bloober Team remake of the 2001 game. Seminal.
He's
Adam
coming
from
straight
WellPlayed.
out the gate. Go Adam.
Hello, Adam from WellPlayed. Did you play the original?
I did. Yeah, I did before this. I started it last year on stream and then finally finished it quietly on my own.
Right, so you played it semi-recently then, not
Yes.
like back in the day. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
And you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I mean, like as a work of art, yes. I think as a video game, it's
Sure,
a
yeah,
video
yeah.
game from that era in terms of your kind of fiddliness, let's say.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Um,
Thank you. Got that out of the way.
Of course.
Jeez,
So
though.
yeah, Bloober. This is from Bloober Team, who I historically and very publicly don't like very much. I think that this is a team of. I used to use the word hacks. I don't want to use that word anymore because I don't want to be necessarily unfair, but I think that they are very reliant on tropes and very reliant on some pretty shitty ones at that. And so when you think Bloober Team and you think Silent Hill 2, which is also historically relevant because it was very much a game for adults. It has some very adult themes around sexual assault, around a lot of gendered violence. It's a very mature topic. And then you think Bloober Team, that is not exactly who I would pair together. And so in a lot of ways, I think this is like the impossible remake, essentially, because it is a beloved game as well. It's so hard to go back to this well. And yet, they have achieved a very interesting thing here. I think that this is look, by miles, the best work I've ever seen Bloober do. You can attribute a lot of that to maybe the guardrails of having this be a remake or an adaptation of a beloved text that requires those guardrails to be in place because you can't stray too far on either side because otherwise people will get very mad at you. But what this has broadly meant is that we've changed from fixed camera to third person over the shoulder action horror, very staple, familiar at this point. It's the Resident Evil remakes, it's Alone in the Dark, it's everything at this point plays exactly the way that this plays. And so you could look at it and understand pretty much immediately. If I don't know, do we need like a plot refresher? I feel a bit goofy going over that, but at the same time, very loosely, James Sunderland gets a letter from his presumed dead wife summoning him to Silent Hill. This is a place that the two of them shared a holiday together at some point. And then at some point in the future, she's died. Now he gets this letter saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm waiting for you. Come and find me." Shows up, chaos ensues. Classic spooky horror town, fog everywhere. Effectively, you've got this like roughly 12 to 15 hour descent into hell begins the moment you start controlling James. It is, yeah, it's way better than I thought it would be, I guess is the broad stroke. Like I had a mostly really good time with this thing. I think the transition into third person action horror modern is fine. I don't think it's necessarily amazing. This isn't a Resident Evil type level of control. It's a little bit better than that Alone in the Dark reboot, but not by much, really. I think this is still pretty janky in a lot of ways. So I guess we can sort of start with that. There is a lot of combat in this game now.
A lot.
Yes.
Do you
Zach
think
from WellPlayed.
Do you think the jankiness plays into the horror a little bit in this way?
No,
No.
I
Okay.
don't.
Right.
I think that there is a difference between intentionally tension driving controls in something like Death Stranding or whatever, and just kind of janky controls. And these are just kind of janky.
Right.
I think that if anything, they make James a little bit overpowered. You have a dodge function that has like iframes effectively, so you can pretty easily get around things. There's no
Animation
stamina.
cancel.
And a lot of animation cancel, no stamina to think of. So he can just wail on things and keep going and keep going and keep going. Shooting is likewise pretty perfunctory, although the sound design elevates it quite a bit, and so you do get a nice heft when you shoot something. So like I think mechanically what they've done here is it's fine. It largely is what it is, apart from some other stuff we'll get into in a minute. But what makes Silent Hill 2 Remake so impressive is just that it's a complete surrendering to vibes in the best way possible. Like this is a fully immersive, horrible situation that James is in, and because of the shift into this new, like obviously high fidelity, very realistic graphics, that alone elevates the game in some interesting ways. But it's also just this combination of sound design and art direction, which Bloober have always been pretty good at. Like this is kind of their wheelhouse. I think that their writing is a bit shit, but like they know how to build a horror world that is at least nice to look at. And so give them the Silent Hill 2 preset, they make some fucking remarkable environments in this game. There's stuff in the latter half of this game that made me feel sick exploring. It was just chef kiss. Really, really good stuff. The fidelity push has also moved us into a place where the performances are sort of equal parts voice work and now also really subtle facial tics. They do some really incredible face animations that convey a lot of subtext and a lot of nuances to these characters that you didn't get from the original. I've seen a lot of people talk about sort of the contrasting performances because the original is very cheesy at times, very over the top. It kind of has to be because it has to project past what they could animate at the time. This new one, it leans into a much more subtle, quiet voice work, which for the most part, I think doesn't necessarily surpass the original, but it is at least a nice companion piece to it. Very, very solid performances across the board. James, in particular, is incredible in this. I don't know the name of the actor who plays him, but he should get a nod at some point for this. There's a couple of lines that are just outright better in the original, in my opinion, but that was always going to happen. There's too much tied to those original line readings, even as someone who only played the game semi recently. Like you can feel it kind of like emanating through history, what they performed there, that you don't quite get here. It doesn't hit quite the same way. But what is here instead is, I think a really nuanced take on this story, which is again not what I expected from Bloober. I think for the most part, they've left the writing largely untouched. They've added some stuff here and there. There's a couple of scenes that I think are not unnecessary, but not anything special. And then there's some other stuff they've added that I really, really heavily fuck with. And so it's a weird contrast there. But for the most part, it ties it all together into a really harrowing and unpleasant experience that I don't think you could ever market to like even a teenager into horror. Like this is an adult game with some very adult things going on. And Bloober does a really good job of kind of infusing all of that with the weight that is required of it. My only real gripes, let's say, is that Bloober has also added a couple of additional kind of exploration scenes to pad out the runtime. And there is also some additional puzzle work. And then the strangest choice is a very Last of Us puzzle. You find something that needs to be wheeled around to put in front of a small ledge so you can then climb over that ledge, right? It's not offensive as a concept, but in this game in particular, it is often used in ways that I think really derail the pacing. There's one at the very end of the game that I find to be hilariously poorly implemented. And I look at those little touches and I go, I understand that Bloober wanted to put their own spin on this. I also understand that modern gaming markets maybe require this game to be a little bit longer than the 8-ish hours you could probably get through the original in. But those additional hours are largely just a lot of backtracking, a lot of stuff I didn't have an amazing time with. And so you reach kind of the concluding moments of this game and you go, oh my God, I've had this incredible emotional experience, feels very mature, very nuanced. Oh, now there's 2 more hours of walking around and solving puzzles and pushing bins. And it starts to get a little bit long in the tooth, I think, for the experience that they were going for here. But other than that, like, I can't stop thinking about this game. Like, I really, really fucked with what they've done here. The problem then is, what is Bloober? What is the original? How do you sort of separate those two things? Because this is a remake. In some ways, it's an adaptation. It plays with your knowledge of the original, let's say, in some interesting ways. But for the most part, I think this is a pretty interesting remake.
Nice.
Anyone have any questions?
Maybe not so much questions. I picked up a few things because you and I are going to approach this slightly different, because I can tell from what you've told me that the game is fundamentally different on the harder difficulties.
Oh, I believe it.
That's going to sound weird. The puzzles are different. The
Yes.
combat's
Yeah.
different. And neither of them work on the harder difficulty. The game
Right.
tremendously falls apart on the harder difficulty. That jankiness you talked about, turn that up to 20.
Right.
It gets so... Give you some perspective. April and I are 15 hours in. We've just finished the hospital.
Oh, no.
We've died hundreds of times in combat encounters and seen the worst of the game's checkpointing system. There is some really fucking weird checkpointing going on. Sometimes it will chuck you back half an hour, sometimes 1 minute.
Yep.
The nurses particularly become a real issue for us in the hospital, because when you're in combat with them, they've got certain move sets, but the way combat interacts is it's not very neat and it doesn't always connect. So what you often have is you'll have a nurse that's on the other side of the room walking towards you. You start to swing up a hit and she's still like 5 meters away. She'll teleport to you. And then we constantly come across these issues with enemies that will teleport to you to do their attack animations. And there's no way to use what the game has taught you to survive those encounters. So constantly you're just dying because the game fundamentally doesn't know how to present a challenge that works within the scope of its systems. So that's unfortunate. And April's now just getting to the point where she's like, just turn the difficulty down. Let's just get through it. Because it's probably a more enjoyable game on a standard difficulty, because it's all, I'm guessing it's all like balanced and works together. The game's like dynamic ammo and health systems, again, don't work for the harder difficulties. There's just not enough thought there compared to a game like The Last of Us, which we're talking a big difference in quality here. The Last of Us Part 1 on its harder difficulties, everything's dynamically tuned to make it so that you're not dying hundreds of times because scarcity's become such an issue. You've gone hours without any health on just a sliver of health. The constant times that happens where you go hours with no health and a bug skitters past and kills you and just sets you back half an hour. Yeah. Just fucking frustrating as a just. So we're very, very frustrated with this remake so far. We've kind of done it to ourselves.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that kind of gets to the point that maybe I came to by the end of the game as well, which is that, like, I think that sometimes in endeavoring to make more of a video game, Bloober have kind of kneecapped an otherwise really well-told story. Because when you're not worried about the combat and when you're not having to deal with pushing block puzzles for no reason, like, you can just flow with it. You just get into the story,
And you do flow with it. And it is really, it's such a journey.
Yes, it is. It is a hell of a journey. Yeah. I mean, I'm not hugely surprised to hear that. I think I've been playing I eventually put combat down to light because I was trying to get through this as quickly as I could. Puzzles were on moderate. Light combat is still relatively punishing, but you get a few more healing items sort of littered around, and so it kind of balances out, right? But like I said, the combat isn't special I mean, it's not bad.
It reminds me of the Callisto Protocol. I couldn't think of anything closer to compare it to than the Callisto Protocol.
Love
that was
Adam,
fucking atrocious hand-to-hand combat.
Oh my lord.
It's a big old, it's a lot of swinging, a lot of shooting, and there is way too much of it by the end of the game as well. I think if you're having this experience now, you should bump it down because they crank up the enemy density. Like,
Jesus. The enemy density is insanely. There's so much more than the original game. In the original game, if you're in a hallway and you're getting your butt munched by a bunch of nurses, you just walk through a door. There's a transition scene there on the other side. These motherfuckers will chase you from one end of the hospital to the other. You cannot avoid combat, which was such a big part of the original game. And the puzzles on the hard mode, they're just crapshoots. Me and April have brute forced half of them. I've had to look up too. And other than the first hour or two of puzzles, most of them just aren't written or conveyed in a way that you could logically deduce. Like, they are just absolutely terribly done, which is a real shame. Like, we're talking like Monkey Island-esque puzzles, just ridiculous. There's no way you could possibly logical it out. So a bit of a shame, but it sounds like what you're saying is it's a game that thrives, like works best on its sort of lighter difficulty, which is odd, but
Absolutely.
it is what it is.
Well, I just like I wouldn't necessarily think that this is a story that should be told the way Resident Evil is told, or a Last of Us even. Like I think, the
Okay.
Last of Us relationship to violence is very specific, and I think they use the mechanics in that way. Whereas Silent Hill 2's relationship to violence and what James is doing, let's say, is it's in the nuances, it's in the subtleties, it's in the storytelling itself. It's not necessarily in the mechanics. I think that the closest you get to that is like the voice work in his like attack grunts is actually quite interesting when you know about James as a character. But I mean, outside of that,
I just said a lot of negative things, but everything else you said, I obviously agree with. And the sound design is something that April and I keep remarking on. It's so much better than we expected, and probably better than some of its peers. Just the subtlety, and it's some of the weird music that just comes through at odd times. Just seems
Yes.
so perfectly placed.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
I've got a clip actually on the sound design of because it's not just music, it's also ambient sounds, it's also voice work
Absolutely.
in a lot of ways. I walk into a particular room out of the left side of my headphones. I hear this slightly weird whisper, and you see my character just back out. I was just immediately like, no, I don't want to be in this room. Like it's that it gets you on that guttural level if you can obviously, I think, tweak the systems to work the way that they're supposed to work.
Beautiful. We should get his score. Hey,
should.
We should get James's score for Silent Hill 2 remake.
I don't envy you. But like I think we've all agreed that it is remarkably good.
Well,
as a
that's it.
baseline.
Like I have a lot of complaints, but I don't know that they actually touch the emotional core of the experience. And to me, like that is the kind of the difference between a good game and a bad game, right? Is if it still gets done what it needs to get done. Yeah, I don't know. I would say let's go for a nice 8.5.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay. That's higher than what I thought.
Yeah, look, when this thing sings, it's choir. There are some choices that are interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
I like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff.
Great.
Speaking of choices, so I have been playing A Quiet Place video game, which is A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. This is if you don't know what A Quiet Place is, it's the very, very popular post-apocalyptic films, which were written by and starring
John Krasinski.
John Krasinski. I nearly said John
Jack
Krasinski.
Ryan.
And also the third one, which is I forgot who's in it, but yeah, that one's which
Joseph
came out.
Quinn? Is it Joseph Quinn? Have I got his name?
I think it's
That's
Joseph
it,
Quinn.
which
Yeah.
came out this year. Yeah, so this is, having played this game, it makes sense to me why this game launched when it did.
Okay.
All right, unpack that for
Leave
us.
us hanging.
So this is a game that was meant to come out a couple of years ago, like originally. I think they were pushing, it's going to come 2023 or whatever it was. If you've seen A Quiet Place, this is not like really a spoiler, but if you've seen A Quiet Place day one, this game follows pretty much the same narrative beat as that game.
Okay.
So your goal in this game is to escape to the same way as they kind of do in the film. Now,
Sure.
James has also played it, so we'll get James's thoughts on that soon. But yeah, so this is set. The main part of the game is set about 4 months into the invasion. There are a few little handful of like day one kind of moments where there's small little sequences. That's actually where, if you've seen the trailer or whatever, and you've seen that combat-y kind of bit with the shotgun in the car, that's where that is. That's probably one of, definitely one of though. Probably the worst gameplay little sequences that I've probably played. It's just not like, I don't know why it's kind of there, right? It's just very strange.
But they're fleeting, right? So is that just in the opening?
There's
or
only
like
one
little-
part. They're kind of spread throughout maybe the first half of the game.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a game where you play as Alex. It's a first-person horror game in the vein of your Alien Isolations. You're this female protagonist, and you kind of start, like I said, like you're 4 months in, but there's a kind of, they're trying to tell like an emotional kind of narrative here. They kind of set you up with some story beats that kind of make you want to feel invested in, I guess, in these characters. Probably nothing that you would that wouldn't be, you're not too surprised by it. Again, if you've seen the films, you'll probably understand.
I'd argue if you've seen any film.
Very true.
Yes.
Very true. But there's also a bit, there's another kind of bits through it that have they kind of tie into that. But yeah, essentially your goal is to be as quiet as possible, move through these linear areas, and move on to the next one. That's essentially it. So you're in this like a hub kind of thing. It's like you start off in the hospital, I think, which is where kind of your base of operations is, and then from there you have to go and find a way to the harbor. Like that's basically it, right? Because if you've seen the day one, I think it's in the other films maybe, but they're afraid of water, or they can't swim, or whatever it might be. So that's kind of the goal, and you've got so you'll go through very kind of, I don't want to say generic, but very generic like areas like city, pump station, like, and like the forest, like this is like what they're all called, right? And the different levels. I will say that, and James, please step in if I say anything that you disagree with, but I thought visually it looked quite appealing. I thought they've done a pretty decent job with the visuals. I think I thought that you would disagree.
I just think it looks like Left 4 Dead.
It looks
I
better
like
than
Left
that.
4 Dead 15 years ago.
It looks better than that. It looks better than that.
Well, like, okay, yes, it does, but like, I think what you're talking about from a fidelity point of view, sure, whatever. But like, as an art direction, it's
pretty
nothing.
basic.
It's soulless.
No,
Yeah.
and there's a very, very good example of that, and that's where you're in these like little town areas, and they feel like you're walking through sets. Like if you're walking through like a set block, like a set lot, whatever it is, these towns don't feel real. They feel very fake. But yeah, so the main part is obviously you need to keep quiet. So your movement needs to be as slow as possible. So this is a slow burn kind of game. Now, a bit like again, I'm going to reference day one again, but because we've all seen it. But when you find out, there's a moment in that film where they find out the rules of the world, so to speak, right? When you understand the rules of the game or the rules of the world in this game, I think it definitely takes away from some of the tension. So what I mean by that is there are sequences where the monster or the Death Angels are not actually in the environment. They are sound design and that are triggered by being too loud and stuff like that. So you'll get like the sound of them being in the environment, but they're not actually there. Right?
Okay.
Where there are some.
I don't like where you're going with it, but I'm with
So
you.
there are some areas where the Death Angel is there, and you need to actually move past it, that kind of thing. But in these other moments, so what you have is you have like a homemade decibel meter kind of thing, I guess, or I think it's called like a phenomenon.
Yep, we've all made one.
Have we? All right. Yes. So, and that basically, and you have that equipped, and that basically tells you how loud you're being, right? So you'll have on the left-hand side, you'll have the level of the environment, and on the right-hand side, you'll have your level, right? James, just on a very, very quick question, did you try it with the microphone thing?
No, I didn't realize that was a functionality it had.
Yeah, so you can actually play it with your microphone turned on, so you can. The actual settings are a bit. I've played it 99% of it with it off because I think it's a bit of a shit mechanic.
It seems a bit like a gimmick, right? Like Alien Isolation did it, so we will too. Or
it's perfectly geared for Twitch streamers, and that's about it.
But it's
I don't think Yeah,
very,
anyone else, it's like maybe if your partner walks in the room and asks you a question and you go, "Oh, for fuck's sake," and now you're dead. But
But
outside
even
of
then,
that,
it's you have to really play with the settings. I had to fuck around with the settings for a good minute or so to kind of get it to actually. So in the end, I was calling this fucking Death Angel like it was like it was right there in front of me. I was calling it all kinds of things before the fucking prick eventually came and killed me, and then I just turned it off. But what was the same? Oh yeah, so you got your little meter. And yeah, basically you've got glass, you've got water, you've got leaves, and all these different things on the world will make noise and stuff like that. So, and what I was saying is that when you're in these areas where there is no monster, it's purely like if you go on the decibel reader, if you go to like the yellowy kind of thing, it'll trigger not like a stab, but like a sound effect, right? It'll be like doom, like it's, and then if you make enough noise, you'll get some sound effects of the creature being nearby, or you hear like a roar, but they'll never actually jump into the environment and like chase you. It's only when you actually make too much noise and then you like, I don't know, it actually triggers like a death cutscene, right? Where you fucking stand still.
Game over state.
Basically, but you got to stand there and wait for this creature to then jump out of the environment and come and kill you. The game doesn't give you the opportunity to run away and evade. And I kind of get it. Why? Because it's like, you're not really meant to survive those moments, I guess. But there was one moment right at the very, very, very end of the game where you have to get onto a vessel. And I fucking made too much noise carrying this fucking plank of wood. James, did you carry any planks of wood? Have you got to that stage yet?
No, I didn't carry any planks of wood.
Right. Big mechanic in this game. Anyway, so I was carrying this plank of wood, fucking made too much noise going down this other plank of wood, and then I fucking fanged it to this vessel, and right as I hit the QTE, or, the prompt to get onto the vessel to basically end the game, the fucking guy got me. Anyway, so other features is your character, Alex, she's asthmatic. And
shout outs.
If you're in this world, essentially everybody is asthmatic because there is puffers everywhere. There is pills everywhere. Like
They're over the counter, mate. Ease up. You don't need a prescription.
But they are everywhere. And I think it gets to a point, like it's a gimmick, right? It gets to a point in this game where you're like, why? This is a hindrance. So
this is terrible for the environment.
Anytime that you go up a ladder, anytime that you climb over a ledge, so in your top left corner there's like a lung meter, if you want to call it that, and too much work will make it go yellow to orange to red, and then when it's the red stage, you've essentially got to use the puffer, right? And it's one puff only. Adam, you're asthmatic, yeah?
Yep.
Are you a one puff or a two puff bloke?
How many?
You got to double puff. If you're in strife and you want to clear out those lungs, you got to double puff it.
Not Alex.
But how many puffs does a inhaler get you normally?
180 these days.
In
They're
this,
pretty. Yeah.
In this, you get one per puffer.
Zach, this is also the same game where like a torch battery lasts what, 30 seconds?
Oh. Yes.
Nice.
I basically didn't use
also
a torch
have torches
at all.
if you want me to. I can
well,
weigh in on that.
There's a torch later on in the
longer.
game because you lose your torch with the batteries. You actually get a rechargeable torch, but obviously the catch is that when you recharge it makes like a race car sound. Yeah.
Sounded like Shy Guy.
Yeah.
So you have to manage that. But yeah, like it just got to the stage where, and if the Death Angel in the environment, like if you're trying to evade one, if that's near you, like, or if it's below you or above you, depending on like where you are in the location, basically you'll start to fucking crap out, and your lungs will you'll be breathing heavily and it's just
right.
It just feels a bit cheap, and it's so frustrating trying to, and as it goes red, the screen will go black, and it's very frustrating to try and navigate these areas. You stand still, you're not making any noise, and this creature is like near you, and you're fucking going hard, and then you climb a ladder, and then all of a sudden your bloody screen's black because you climbed a ladder, or you climbed a little ledge. It's like, mate,
You go for a jog. See how you like it.
The other thing is there's just like the planks. There's so much, and it's one of those games where it's
So
like
much wood.
find the valve, put the valve in, turn the water off, get the crank, do this, and yes, lots of planks where you put the planks between two areas, right? But magically, when you put the plank down, this thing just goes like
I bet that's satisfying.
makes
Is it
well,
silent?
silent, mate.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can
Must be Hugh
So-
and Pine, known for being
so-
silent.
so basically, you
I got it.
every single door that you open, there is some really cool moments. Like I did find that there was some really cool moments. It was kind of tense, but like I said, when you kind of found out how loud you could push the game to be before you trigger the cutscene, I was being pretty liberal, right? Like I was, and then it got to the stage where I was just being too liberal too often, where I would, and I was dying like quite frequently. Story is fine, like I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's good.
Question on that. Being that you're in a silent world, I'm guessing there's voice acting and whatnot. Are they just like, they do the whole stand under a fountain, then they can have a conversation? Or do you have to put up with ASMR sounding motherfuckers throughout the whole game that are whispering?
It's a bit of both.
Gotcha.
It's a bit of both. Because there's like, it's really quite humorous. One of the opening scenes has you go into like a safe room, and there's a message that says like don't scream in the safe room because it can hear you or something to that effect, right? Later on in the game, you go into a safe room and you just chat away, mate. Like it's all good.
Nice. Yeah, we
right.
don't love consistency.
I don't know how else you make this game without some of
You
these.
just don't. Well, no, like I remember we talked about this when you were crapping on about it, because for some reason this is one of the games that you kind of latched onto. You're like,
I
where
like
is
it.
it? Where is it? Where is it?
I like a quiet place. Leave me alone.
No, you like a challenge is what you like. And I remember having the conversation of how do you make this game interesting? Like once you get past the initial, oh, it's a cool IP, why not make a game out of it? It's got to be all stealth, and it's got to be all watching how loud you can be. And I just don't know. I don't think you can make that entertaining and engaging from a game perspective. It makes for an entertaining movie franchise. I like all three of the films. I just want to play it,
It's
You nailed it earlier, mate. Sounds like a streaming game.
It's the kind of game you'd love
Yeah,
to watch,
exactly.
wouldn't it? Watch someone play.
Correct.
That's it. My argument is that I think that there are a lot of mechanics and ideas in this game that are interesting for 2 hours. I think if you do a tightly crafted small experience, this would be interesting. As
Make
it
it
stands,
VR.
It's
it's
about 8 to 10.
tedious.
It's about 8 to 10. 8 to 10
Fucking
hours.
hell.
And the game, so thank you for reminding me, because this thing throws you new mechanics way up to the very end. So it's not till about halfway through the game you can actually go, oh, I can pick up a brick and throw it to fucking lure the creature away. It's like, mate, like there are bricks way back where we were before. Like, why can't we pick that up? It's not till halfway through the game where the creature suddenly decides it's got that sonic hiss thing that it does, and you can't move in those moments. The pathfinding, I don't know how you describe it, the pathing of the creature is fucking annoying, right? It follows you. I get it that that's fine, but it's annoying, right? Like I'm trying to creep around this thing. I'm throwing bricks at bottles to distract it, to lure it over there. I'm being quiet as fuck, right? Like you can't hear me. Like I'm not triggering that threshold. Yet the creature's still walking towards my path. And then of course I get kind of hemmed in, and then all of a sudden my asthma's kicking up, and it's like, fuck off. Like honestly.
Yeah.
I was here first. God.
What I will say, I didn't hate it. And in its defense, this game is $40 on Steam.
Okay, that softens it, eh?
So
Does it?
I think so. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it just I think it's too long. I think you can probably there's a moment if you did this in 6 to 8, it'd be a bit tighter. Because there are some moments like there's just a lot of padding. Like with these, like you have to pick up like so you got to. There's areas that are separated by different planks, so you got to use the plank to then cross one area. Then you pick up the plank, bring it over there, cross that plank, go get this fucking key, come back with the crank or the plank. Who knows?
Frank with the plank.
I'm in between a 5 and a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds it.
I think the sound design is relatively okay. Like it's very minimal. There's lots of environmental sounds. There's like hardly any music at all. And there were moments early in that game where the noise from the creatures did kind of throw me off, and I was like, "What the fuck?" But then I kind of figured that okay, I can push this game and its rules to be in my favor. There you go. I haven't finished writing it, so it'll land somewhere there. Maybe a 5.5. Yeah. But I think if you like this IP, $40 there's probably enough there to play. James, any
About what I
final thoughts on that one?
No, I don't like this game.
Okay.
And I don't want to be mean.
Fair. Nathan,
Zach.
game that you have reviewed. Wise.
Oh, I thought you set
Flawless
this up for a
segue.
Wow.
Flawless.
I feel after two morose, sort of somber titles, I feel like I've got to switch the energy up now because I want to have a quick chat about Yeast. Yeast. Really, you feel that one in your jaws when you say it. Yeast 8,
I'll
10.
take your
Sorry,
word for
10.
it.
Yeast 10. Nordics. This is a soft reboot of one of the longest running Japanese action RPGs. I think this series has been around since the late 80s now. And the pitch for every single one of these titles is very simple. You've got a young red-haired adventurer Adol. His one motivation in life is simply adventure, and you're going to take him on an adventure. There's very little sort of baggage that you need to come into the 10th entry reboot or not, because these are all fairly self-contained games that just involve this adventurer ending up in a location. They'll figure out some arbitrary hook for that location to force you into adventuring, and the game just delivers a very satisfying loop of being thrown into a zone, exploring the zone. So what that usually comes down to is just in third person, just moving Adol around to every sort of all the perimeters of what the location you're in, and filling out your little completion meter. 100% excellent. That's going to involve getting all the treasure chests and everything, and then it's just got a really its combat is very sort of like before we got the spectacle fighters of games like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, kind of fits somewhere a little closer to maybe like Kingdom Hearts 2. It's a lot of like cooldown dumping with your face buttons, very fast paced, flashy, and pick up and play it for the most part, but with a considerable skill ceiling, so easy to learn, hard to master. East Nordics takes Adol. For whatever reason, he's in the northern seas near Denmark. Previous adventures have taken him across continents like Africa or Hispania, as well as Rome. They've got interesting naming conventions where some of them they're just like, we'll just use the original, it's fine. But because we're up near Denmark this time, we get Vikings, and in this location, Vikings pretty much rule the seas. They're not, but they're kind of benevolent. They run on a protection racket, effectively. Like, they go around different towns. They've got trading routes set up and that, and they go, you pay us, we'll make sure no one bothers with you. But there's also a villainous presence that emerges on the seas called the Grieger. They're kind of like a supernatural, monstrous entity. Some of them have like a human form, but they're kind of magical creatures. They're invincible by all conventional measures. So Adol pretty quickly on it, or not quickly on, actually, that's one of the issues. After about 10 hours of sort of just spending time on one of the first islands, getting to know all the characters on the island, what their grievances are with the Vikings, how they feel, what their motivations are, what their family dynamics are like. After about 10 hours of that and some sort of like very light dungeons and a bit of light exploration, we find that Adol has been now cursed by one of the Grieger that's come across him on the island. He's got 3 months to live. He's also just arbitrarily, for whatever fucking reason, been bound to one of the Vikings, a Viking princess called Karja. One of the big twists of this game. So you won't actually be controlling Adol by himself. You'll be controlling 2 characters as you go through your hack and slash explorations, and it works really neat. It's really fresh for this kind of like light and breezy system. You'll be switching between characters by just pressing square. You can press square sort of mid-combo and they'll just elegantly chain halfway through what they're doing into the next attack that you're going to line up. It all just sort of seamlessly and effortlessly sort of glides together, which is nice because this is a pretty old looking game and an old feeling game. I use the word retro, which feels a little cringe because I'm talking specifically about a PlayStation 2 era style of game. That's what these games remind me of, both in their scope. Adam from WellPlayed.
Very, very quickly, just to touch on that, it feels like an old game, but this isn't a remake or a remaster or reimagining. This is a new entry, yeah?
This game will make its first debut in the West this Friday, and it only just saw its first release in Japan earlier this year, I want to say. So this is a
Okay, cool.
new release for Falcom, absolutely.
Gotcha.
But they did do a lot of sort of porting of their last couple of games.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so with these 2 characters now bound together, the people on the island that you spent like 10 hours sort of getting to know, they'll get captured and taken off by the Grieger. They get transformed into little Grieger monsters and dumped on different islands and stuff like that. So you've got 2 issues. You've got to lift Adol's curse and rescue these people that have been captured by the Grieger because, you know, Karja, as the Viking princess, was meant to be keeping them on the level. That's about as much plot as you need to know. That's extended across 40 hours. And what you're going to be doing is you've got a boat called the Sandris this time. So you'll be going across an ocean between these little islands, exploring the islands. Some of these islands will have a little boss at the end, which will often just be an NPC that's been turned into a Grieger. So you beat the boss on that island, bring them onto the ship. They turn out to be a vendor or a merchant of some goods. They give you some side quests, some stories, yada yada. It's fine. It's nice. It's a neat little loop. But there's not a whole lot here that we haven't seen before for a Yeast game. As I said, it's just simply about being put into a zone, exploring that zone, clearing it out of its enemies and its treasure, and you're going to get some good rewards out of that you're going to take into the next zone. All these zones, as I said, are linked by a kind of semi-open world, this ocean. But this game has a real big issue of sort of hemming in exploration. So for a game where it's all about adventure, right through to the credits, I very frequently come up against issues where I might be on an island just sort of moseying along and I can see a treasure chest like a few meters to just off the beaten path. Go get said treasure chest, game throws up a big red council icon and a big blue sheen of wall and goes, nah, it's an invisible wall. You ain't going over there just yet, mate. It's something that happens right through the game. It's something that happens in other Yeast games as well, but usually they were because like you can't enter that area yet. You don't have a particular ability, or maybe it's just like a tree's fallen. There'd be some kind of obstruction, but this is just like, nah, invisible walls, brat. You can't be adventuring like that. Which is really at odds with the kind of thesis of what these games are. It's not just on the islands either. When you're out in your boat, you think wide open blue seas, let's go. It is an archipelago. Because of the islands, there is a lot of shallow reef, and what that means is what looks like a big blue ocean is actually kind of like branching corridors. Because if you try and just like pick a direction and go, after about 10-20 seconds, you're just going to end up moored on a shallow reef you can't even see. So what they do to amend this is they put these lines through the ocean, which is to represent wind. Doesn't matter what direction the wind's going. You can be into the headwind, tailwind. It's wind. Pick one of those wind lines and just glide on through to your destination. Took a little bit of the wind out of my sails. I was expecting a little bit more free form, you know, maritime adventuring, a la Skull and Bones or anything like that. I won't really get into Skull and Bones comparisons here. That's for someone else to do. That'd be hilarious because this is very arcadey. The ship combat, it's just you move into a little circular zone somewhere in the ocean, nondescript. As soon as you hit that zone, then some enemy ships populate. And you just mash your buttons to just throw off your broadsides and all your different cannons. You can equip like what is it? I think 6 different types of cannons at a time, and they're all on cooldowns. You just mash them motherfuckers, and combat's usually over in less than a minute. It's fine. It's a breezy, reasonably well paced game, but yeah, it's still very much in its PS2 era, so it's not much of a looker even for a 2024 game that's on PS5. There's no haptics, no vibration whatsoever, which is a real shame. It's an issue I had with Yeast 8 and 9 on PS5. They had a little bit of vibration. You'd get feedback if an enemy hit you. You'd just get no feedback at all here. So that's a real bummer. Yeah, I think that's really most of my thoughts there, guys. It's more Yeast that we've had before. This is kind of, it wants to be for new players, I suppose, but I argue that you're just as easily going, you're just as fine to go with some of the like celebrated earlier titles than this one, because they are so self-contained. You're not missing anything to go play an older one or this one. I just think that compared to the last couple, this one's a little bit of a step back. It just doesn't iterate in ways that I thought were pushing the series forward, particularly with the increased propensity of like things like invisible walls and loads of dialogue that you just won't care about and railroading. So that's a bit of a shame. But yeah, coming down low on this one, or low for my experience with the Yeast series, I'll give this one a 7. I think I'd given the previous game a 7.5 and then 8, which is 2 back. That was like an 8.5. So you see, we're kind of trending downwards. This game kind of needs a new lease on life, and this was meant to be it. It's kind of not it. It's still just more of the same.
Bummer.
I still had a good time with it, but 40 hours for a 7 out of 10. That's not everyone's. That's not going to sell everyone. What do we got next on the docket, boss?
Adam, you've been hiding in the shadows too long. It's time to jump into the spotlight. I had nothing for you, mate. You got a fucking Y, a little S, and an X.
Just make the sounds, bro. That's what I did. Just X.
Feel it in your jaw, apparently.
Yeah, I refuse to find out. Yes, I have been playing like the other two here, not you, Nathan. A little horror game. Mine was better than A Quiet Place. This is the first game to be published by Blumhouse's game publishing arm. It's Fear the Spotlight. So you've probably seen it. I think it actually got a release a year ago on Steam, and then it got kind of pulled back to work on it and do a re-release for consoles as well. So yeah, it's a throwback kind of PS1 era style horror game. Very much as far as the aesthetics are concerned. It's got kind of the VHS filter, and there's different settings that you can kind of mess around with to make it a little bit more modern if that's not what you're into. But it has like a limited frame rate, and the camera moves kind of natively just to kind of give you the old style, kind of Silent Hill prior to it getting the remake, I guess. It has that style look to it. But yeah, you play as Vivian, who is kind of a bookworm teenager that has agreed to break into her school after hours to impress her new friend, who she has a bit of a crush on, whose name is Amy. She's kind of the resident goth girl. She wears black lipstick and has a pentagram on her shirt, so you can tell she's, maybe lives on the other side of the tracks. But yeah, so they break into the school because they want to perform a seance with a Ouija board or a spirit board, because the school has kind of a dark past. In the early 90s, there was a fire that killed like a few dozen kids, and there were a few nefarious cover-ups and whatnot surrounding that sort of thing. So yeah, they go in. There's more to why they're there that gets kind of shown over time. But the general premise is they go in, they want to do a seance. It's a cool thing to do when you're that age. Obviously, that doesn't go particularly well, and shit kind of hits the fan. Once that does, Amy goes missing, and Vivian is kind of transported to an otherworldly version of the school, kind of back in the 90s as well. She's kind of stuck somewhere in this dreamscape between modern day and the 90s. And she's being pursued by the Spotlight, which is kind of reminiscent to Pyramid Head as well. He's this tall, slender man with, not slender man, you get what I mean, with a spotlight, like a stage spotlight for a head. And the main kind of driving force behind the segments that you have with him is as he steps, he creates kind of like a field of embers so you can get burnt, as well as if you get caught in his spotlight gaze, he draws you in and it drains some of your health. Much like A Quiet Place, to gain back health, you have a puffer because you're an you're an asthmat. Jesus, you're asthmatic. It's a one puff situation. They're far more limited. It's just kind of more of a thematic choice. You don't want to be using band-aids and that sort of shit. Primarily, though, the game is more focused on kind of setting and tone and vibes. It's very much about setting the setting the scene more than anything. It's very environmentally based scares. There's no jump scares, absolutely zero. It's all about just kind of building tension. You often see like these little shadowy figures that are, I suppose, implied they're the dead kids from the school fire, and they're always kind of just out of frame or just out of kind of your field of view, and they're ducking away. You walk past some cubicles and you see feet kind of poking out behind, and then they kind of disappear like they're standing up on the toilet, that sort of thing. But during your playthrough, you'll be solving puzzles, a la kind of Resident Evil, I suppose. You need to find a key item to then use it on a door or a window or something like that. But they're all tactile. So if you have a screwdriver, it'll zoom in on what you're using it for. You'll pick it from your inventory, and then you'll have to manually unscrew each of the screws. And it's like that for everything. And it's really cool. I really like the tactility and kind of the point and click element to it. It's not cumbersome. Once you've used the screwdriver to unscrew a screw once, your character will understand that's the item that they need to use. So you just, when you go into that view, you just click on them instead of having to pick it from your inventory. It doesn't waste your time. So that's really great. There's no combat in the game whatsoever. The one sort of combat, I suppose, encounter, they deal with it in a kind of clever way. So it's like I said, very without the jump scares and without combat. It's very much just based on the story that I really did like but can't discuss because of embargo details. And yeah, just the general tone. It all being set in this otherworldly high school that already has kind of a grim past is really cool. And the story it does tell is actually quite harrowing. By the time you get to the end, it does unfurl everything. It doesn't leave heaps up to the imagination, and that's kind of like worse in a good way. I don't know. Like it's dark and quite grim in a way that I wasn't expecting, and it does make you feel a bit. It's got that kind of pit of your stomach, awful feel. Yeah, Nathan, you have a question?
Would you say it's an adult game?
Yes, I'd say as an adult, you probably will interact with it a bit differently. I think if you're maybe a young adult or teen, it's still very much a game you can play. Like it's not visceral or gory or I can't really spoil anything for Silent Hill because it's just had the remake. But you get my point. It doesn't have those sort of implications as heavily. But as an adult, you'll probably see things a bit differently, and it'll make you feel a bit more ick, I think, is the best way I can describe it. So yeah, I would say yes, it is an adult story, but I don't think you'll lose anything if you're, say, a teenager that doesn't have kind of real world adult experience going into it as well. I think you'll be able to still appreciate it for what it is.
You can play this on your Nintendo Switch, right? On your child hardware?
Yeah, exactly. It's child hardware friendly. There is a really large part to the game that's kind of a throwback to kind of the Resident Evil campaign that I, again, can't talk about for the embargo reasons. That's a really massive reason as to why I think this game goes from being good to fantastic. So you'll have to play it to find out for yourself. I might talk a little bit more about it in coming weeks because I do think it is worth discussing. But yeah, overall, the game is like maybe 4 hours long, I think, in total. It doesn't waste your time in any way, shape, or form. It gets in, tells a concise story, has really cool gameplay, and then gets out. I'd say it's probably a bit easy. It does fall into there's no sort of challenge. There's a trophy for not dying that I just kind of popped without trying because there's very little threat. And I do think the enemy encounters do get a little bit predictable after a while. They're only kind of scattered in, and it's just kind of to punctuate the story more than it is to challenge you. But it does get a little bit samey towards the end. And another thing is it's not a negative. It's, for me, I suppose, more of a positive because it's a nostalgic thing. But if you are a teenager playing this, you're not going to have any fucking idea what some of these things are. Like, you are told to retrieve a floppy disk and put it in a computer to print something out. And I'd imagine if you're a kid, you're not going to know what the fuck a floppy disk is. It's not a problem. Like, it's colored in a way that that shows you that it's a key item, so you're not going to miss it, but you're probably not going to appreciate things as much as people our age would. But again, that's not a negative in any way, shape, or form. I absolutely loved this game. I think it is a massive win for Blumhouse being their first game to publish. And if this is the quality that they're going to be throwing out, I think we're in for a really, really good time for horror in the next couple of years. I'm sitting probably on an 8.5 or a 9. I haven't quite decided yet. I've missed embargo. Terrible, I know. But this game's fantastic, and I think if you even have a passing interest in horror, you should definitely give it a crack.
I'm sold. Let me throw a quick little trivia in there because I think this is really interesting as a game. But like, it's a 2-person development team, so cool.
Yep.
Cozy Game Powers, solid name.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the two was a art lead on Animaniacs. How's that for trivia?
Name sounds
that's
familiar.
excellent.
That name sounds familiar.
There's zany
I'd
to
be
the
surprised
max,
if
mate.
Zach of all people wasn't aware of Animaniacs.
Yeah, if you like the little, whatever that little voyeur's name is, the Watcher.
Oh yeah,
What's this
yeah,
little purple dude? Yeah.
Widget.
Yeah, that's really cool. Widget.
And then
thank you.
the other
Widget.
ones, worked on The Last of Us Uncharted Journey, just going by the website. But cool. I really like everything you've said, man.
It's such a phenomenal little game. And I was so stoked when I rolled credits at about 4 hours because I felt like I was happy with how everything had gone. I wasn't left wanting more. All of the story threads had been kind of tied in a nice little bow. And yeah, it is the perfect length for something like this. It really, yeah. And it's also like, it's a great throwback. It's cool that it's paying homage, but it's not falling into the trappings of those old games and feeling old. It does feel modern while understanding what made those games so great. So I think it's an excellent little game.
That's exciting.
Lovely. All right, one last one before we hit the rest of the bits and pieces. This one we'll go through pretty quickly, but Unknown 9, I've still only dabbled at the start a little bit. I'm only kind of a bit past where we were, what we played for the preview. James, you've reviewed this on Press Start. I know that Nathan, you have started it. Did you play much past the... Okay, you sung some hours?
Just past where you said, and
Sure.
that was like just shy of 3 hours in.
Yes, I'm still there. I've just got back to the Herv village, if that makes sense to you.
That'd be where I am, I think.
Yeah. Unknown 9, this is Unknown 9 Awakening. This is the game from Bandai Namco, who are publishing it, and Reflector, who I believe are a Canadian Canadian or French?
French Canadian.
I know French Canadian. I think they're from
Why not both?
from Montreal, right? Yeah, this is their first game, and this is part of the broader multimedia universe of Unknown Nine, which features like podcasts, books, comics, maybe, and it's some
Why
other sort
not?
of stuff. This is the video game starring Anya.
Chalotra.
Yeah, I can never remember her last name, who you might know better as Yennefer from the Witcher TV series. This is a third-person hack and slash action adventure kind of game that feels very much like early Assassin's Creed, early Uncharted games kind of thing. That sort of era of adventure kind of action games. In this one, you're Haruna, who's played by a good friend Anya, big fan of the show, and one of her mentors has passed from this character called Vincent.
Oh, was it Vincent?
Sorry.
It's Vincent.
It's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Vincent is correct.
Vincent Lichter. And
What?
He did what?
yep. That is toilet humor, boys. We do not have that on this show. Anyway, Big Vinny. He is, so they're all part of this group. They're like called questers, right? And they've got this ability to see into this magical dimension, or whatever you want to call it, this other dimension called the Fold, and that gives them some powers and shit like that. Your basic magical spells, like your ability to go invisible, your ability to do like a push pull kind of skill. But the cool thing is it allows you to kind of play with the some objects in the environment. So like your red barrels and other shit, right? Now Haruna is on a quest for vengeance because big old Vincent has hurt his mentor, and now I think it's a couple. Is it set 4 years? 2 years? It's set.
I think 2 years.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
2 years after, and so this is kind of set in. I don't know if it's set in India completely. James, you'd be better to answer that.
It bounces around a little bit, but it's like a fictionalized take on East Asia kind of.
Yeah, which is really cool. It's cool to see those sort of cultures getting more representation in video games, not just another game set in America or London or wherever it might be, somewhere that's not used as much. And yeah, you'll basically climb, go into these combat arenas almost, and kind of take out a bunch of enemies. They're all kind of generic kind of goons. Even at the 3.5 hours that I've played, that they are feeling a bit repetitive at this stage. James will probably be able to answer whether it opens up a little bit. I've only just got some of the Umbric skills, which is where you can kind of daze them almost, and kind of do this burst attack kind of thing. But the game leans heavily into stealth, so the idea is that you don't sort of go in fist blazing. You kind of pick away at enemies as you kind of move through by using the skills at your disposal. I didn't find it particularly satisfying, the stealth. James, I know that you kind of felt otherwise a little bit.
The stealth itself, I think, is whatever. It's kind of indicative of everything else in the game. It's that sort of 360 PS3-ish era of pretty basic mechanics. It's just elevated by the stepping ability.
So the stepping ability, for those who are asking, that is the ability where you can basically take over or commandeer your one of the enemies in the nearby arena. So if it's someone with a gun, for example, you can basically take over that person, shoot another enemy. Then as you kind of upgrade and unlock that skill, you can take over more people. You can do things like, if there's a alarmy kind of thing, like that's like a sensor that picks up your presence, you can kind of go and smash that. But again, these guys or these enemies are goons, right? So you can kind of take over a couple of them, smash a couple of objects, make them attack one another, but then hide 30 seconds in the tall grass that no one ever thinks to look into, and they'll be like, all right, we'll just carry on like with our day, kind of thing. It's a double A experience. It definitely feels like a double A experience. It's quite. I feel the combat's quite janky, as well as you'd kind of expect. It's probably a 6.5 for me at this stage. I'm not. I don't know if the story will kind of pull me in a bit more.
Seemed like a generic revenge tale, didn't it? Like I've rolled
Yeah.
my eyes 2 hours and I was like, they're not gonna, and then they did, and I was like, oh, I feel like we know what we're in for now.
There is just something about, and James will be able to speak to it in just a second, but there is something about the companions that Haruna has that just, I don't know, is like they're quite not cringy is probably the wrong word, but they're not campy. What's the word I'm looking for, James? They're give me the
They're
word.
very archetypal.
Yeah.
They're sort of very expected tropes, I would say.
Like an American gunslinger, for example, kind of guy. But I find them quite fun, right? They're entertaining enough. Yeah. But James, your thoughts, because you've
Yeah,
seen
I
the
mean,
most of it.
I liked it. Like, I don't think it's like gonna blow anybody away. But I do think that by the time you get to kind of like the third act of the game, the way you can combine all of the abilities into like a fairly seamless flow between stealth to combat to controlling the environment and the situation that you're in, it all just like it does click together in a very fun and compelling way that sort of should form the basis for more games. If this was built in the 360 era, that's what would have happened. It would have had its Assassin's Creed moment. Like it should be a jumping off point for a team that I think clearly understands how to put building blocks together. I think the game is a little bit let down by its overall story. It's fine. I guarantee you, Nathan, you've already called half of what's about to happen in this narrative. It is that kind of thing. I think that Haruna is occasionally pretty interesting as a protagonist, occasionally pretty tropey as well. The tropes can be fun though, like we were saying with the gunslinger. Like, he's not special, but he is at least relatively entertaining. And the world itself has some interesting ideas about sort of humanity and the nature of everything and what we do and how we do it. And like it's simmering a bunch of good stuff. I don't think it ever fully cooks it, except for some of the mechanics I do think are actually pretty fun by the end of the game.
Cool.
And on the goons, they do get progressively bigger and more interesting. There's one in the late game in particular that I think is like, he looks like a Evil Within guy. It's excellent. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Nathan, any thoughts from you?
I'm very pleased to hear that James say that by the third act, those systems blend together in a way that feels like kind of seamless and I assume satisfying, because you get glimpses very early on. Like as I say, I'm maybe 3 hours in. I've already had situations where I've been able to set up scenes where I've stepped into a couple of guys simultaneously, had a dude with a gun walk up to a barrel and, this game loves a red barrel, shoot it right in front, just set off just an immaculate like little fireworks array of carnage from the safety of your tall grass. I kind of dig that. It felt a lot more empowered than I'm used to in a stealth game, and it had an element of strategy, just a touch that you might get from a game like who are those me games like the fuck, I can't think the it's
I know what
like
you're
a
trying to drive at.
yeah, like a stealth strategy. It's neat. I was really pleased that the stepping ability worked so effortlessly and so seamlessly, because it was kind of seemed like a selling point. So I think that was the thing that kind of got me the most, like just how much that worked, and the potential and the promise of it would be the thing that kept pushing me through. I mean, otherwise, I also quite liked occasionally there's some really nice art in some of the locations that it takes you to, like seeing, what is it, like 1915, their version of like 1915 India or whatever. It's it's quite a different take to. I mean, it's still colonized, right? But it's a different kind of colonization. Um, it's interesting, but it is a bit disappointing to hear it doesn't quite, it doesn't cook by the end of it, because you do pick up a lot of those things early on that seem really interesting. Even the unknown nine, as they were hinted at like quite early on, but I assume that
It's such a shame about the Unknown Nine as a concept, and this isn't a spoiler, but like the idea being that like there are 9 people who've achieved immortality and have been sort of quietly in the background of the past however many cycles of civilization on the planet, kind of thing. It's an interesting concept. I think calling them the Unknown Nine is goofy, and it
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of it puts up a wall right away where you go like, come on, you know. But the concept, the commentary, very good.
I don't know if this is going to drive me towards more of the media. I did have a look. I had a look at the books, and I was like, don't know if I'd look into the comics now. How you folks feel about looking into the further media on this? Would you bother?
Well, I do
I've
have
got
the
a
book.
copy on my bookshelf.
Yeah, I am keen to read the book. So at some stage, just even part of it, just to try and get an idea, just get a little taste.
Little taste. Yeah, I get that.
Little Unknown 2, maybe.
That's it. But what this what what this does
No, just
upset me a little bit here is we think about these games that are third party, relatively big publishers that are still putting out AA efforts, right? But this game really did kind of launch with very minimal marketing, right? Like, just kind of, it just feels like it's being pushed out to kind of exist and make what they can. It hurts seeing these AA games that are good, and I found Banishers like really good, but there's just no success. There's just no love there. Like, it feels like AA is such a hard thing to get right in this modern era of gaming, where it's in that kind of space between being a cool indie and having the big budget mechanics and the appeal of a AAA game. And if you can't get that right, it's a expensive flop. To like Banishers, which I think was a excellent game, and that was a pretty solid work across the board. Flopped, right? And that's something that we'll touch on very, very briefly in the news. But I mean, we can even just talk about it now. But Don't Nod are going to be laying off a bunch of people. I would say somewhat because of a result of Banishers not selling, but also their other games just not performing as well, right? And here, it's as James said, like this could have been this game's Assassin's Creed moment where the first one's sets you up and then you go on to bigger and better things, but it's probably not going to get that because either the critical reception's not been great, so I would assume sales have not been great.
It's virtually dead on arrival on Steam.
Okay.
Also, I don't think we're in the place as far as the medium is concerned to be able to take those swings. I think if you look at the PS3 and the 360 era, there were a lot of these games in the AA space that were just kind of taking swings, and if it landed, no worries, and there wasn't as much pressure, I suppose, for it to outperform, the game before and the game before that. Whereas
metrics for success were very different.
Very different. Whereas nowadays, if you're not selling 1 million copies within a week, then you're fucked. So I think we just live in a.
You're still kind of fucked. Dead Space Remake is a great example of this, right? That thing sold like 2 million copies and was still deemed a failure. Like, if that's the bar, then I don't know what an Unknown 9 is supposed to do.
The thing that frustrates me a lot about this, again, I think we've talked about it, is that we all say, a lot of gamers say that they want new IPs, they want new adventures, they want new stories, they want new blah, 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 blah. Sure, you might have played the same formula quite a few times, right? But it's still like, it's a new thing. And we just don't put our money where our mouths are as a collective.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think maybe the people who are saying that aren't the the majority, because it's
Well, that's
tricky,
why I'm
right?
saying
Because
it's that balance. It's you're in that
yeah,
tight spot in the AA where you're not quite appealing to everyone because it's not like this big budget game, but then you're not kind of getting the people like, oh yeah, that looks like a cool indie.
I think it's hard because the market is so different now. Whereas gaming used to be kind of a niche that not everyone was into. I think you'd be very hard pressed these days to speak to, I don't know, someone who doesn't at least have, a game on their phone, for instance. To some degree, they're in the medium, so the expectations are different. You're not speaking to a small cohort of people who know all about these things because that's their vice. Are you speaking to, you know, my mate who only plays Call of Duty once a year? It's
Mm.
it's a different market. It's just the double A's a dying breed. It sucks.
All right, let's go to shoutouts.
Did you give a score?
I don't have a score. I think I said maybe a 6.5. That's where I'm
Yeah,
sitting at
that's
the moment,
right.
but I'm not
A lot of
anywhere
scores in
near.
flux tonight. I like this. This is good.
Yeah, not like I'm just nowhere near enough to put a thing out because like you said, it might all kind of smooth out into a nice little
Coalesce.
buttery experience.
Buttery.
Actually, I did cook an amazing hockey and noodle dish the other night. It was very
It's
good.
not off topics yet, mate. Save it.
Sorry.
Cultural appropriation.
Oh, okay.
Do the
Am I not
shout
allowed
out.
to? Ash Whaling says Sonic X Shadow's Generations once again proves that while Sonic may be timeless, Shadow just squeaks ahead in understanding the assignment a little better, offering a revisited revamp that is easy to enjoy for fans and fence sitters alike. Gee, an original 8.5.
Cop that, Ash. Fuck
No.
you.
It was just more because James gave Silent Hill 8.5. You gave Fear the Spotlight 8.5, maybe.
Could still go on 8 just to shake things up. Who knows?
Yeah. All right.
Sorry for playing a game that's better than fucking
Oh, fuck up.
Sneak the horror game.
Sneak the horror game.
Yeah,
Classic.
Good one, mate. All right, off topics. Yeah, so the hockey dish was great. Thanks, Nathan, for asking.
Do you use XO sauce?
No, I used a little bit of oyster sauce, some dark soy sauce, some light soy sauce, corn flour, brown sugar. This is just the sauce itself.
Is this just the recipe now?
We can just do recipes like if you want.
Oh no, you had me going.
It was good.
Oh,
Real
it
good.
did sound good. Yeah.
I'll send you a pitch. A pic. All right. What have we watched? I have watched a film called Azrael. So Azrael. Do we know about this? Is coming?
I've seen posters. That's it.
Yeah, I was kind of excited for this film. So this is essentially a film where there's no talking. So it's not like a silent film, but yeah, it's like a post-apocalyptic film. There's some people that do kind of talk, but the main character doesn't talk, kind of thing. Bit Avo. There you go.
Bummer.
Better if they talked.
It'd just be better if it was a better film.
You heard it
Yeah.
here first.
You're a critic.
And I just can't believe going into it, but it's. But I watched the first 2 episodes of Teacup.
Okay.
James.
Do you know what I love about you? Is that
What?
every week, without failure, unless it's Slow Horses, you come here and you go, watch a couple of episodes of Mountain
Random
Madness.
show you've never
And
heard
it's like,
about.
who's making this? What is this? Where did you find it?
Have you never heard of Teacup? Interesting. I
No.
put it in our
He's
chat a
been
bit.
posting it in the Discords. He's been really repping it.
I don't
It's,
know if I got Discord. Yeah. Muted
You
that
should-
shit.
People should join our Discord where James doesn't exist, so you're
Thriving
free.
community.
Exactly.
Well, James, Teacup is on
Teacup?
binge. Is on binge.
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm gonna read you the official little spoiler. Not spoiler. The you know what I'm saying. Strange things are happening on the Chenoweth's secluded Georgia farm. Their animals are spooked and restless, and their young son has wandered into the woods and come back confused and somehow changed. Stranger still, a mysterious man in a homemade gas mask has arrived and is spray painting a blue line along the ground. All this leaves a disparate group of neighbors forced to band together in the face of an unknown and deadly threat. Teacup goes. Oh, let's just go into it. Yeah.
I'm not intrigued.
I was kind of like, okay, whatever, until the blue paint, and then
Yeah,
suddenly I was
right.
like,
So basically, this dude rocks up. So shit's a bit whack, right? The kid fucks off into the woods. Comes back. He's like talking. He's yabbering on about something, and this guy in a gas mask comes in, spray paints the blue. They see him. So some people see him. They run off and he's got this like whiteboard. Like he doesn't speak, and he's just like, "Don't cross the line."
Do you know what my favorite part of that? Just before James asks this question, I love that you read the Google synopsis and you're like, I can do better.
yeah,
No, this is like what happens. But yeah, like they go, and he's like, "You can't fucking cross the blue line." It's interesting. I'm intrigued. I don't know if it's any good yet, but I'm intrigued.
You leave him
James.
thank you. Whose teacup is it?
The other thing that is good is the new Breaking Benjamin song. So you should go and check that out. James really enjoyed it.
I had a pretty okay time with it.
All right. Anybody else?
Holy fucking shit. Yeah, it just came to me that I have... Sit down, James.
No.
That I have watched something this week. Just out of pure morbid curiosity, I watched the first couple of episodes of the Australian version of The Office.
Okay.
Oh,
What have you
please
got
do
for
tell.
us?
Do you know what? It doesn't suck. It's actually... It's surprisingly entertaining, and I don't know if it's like because it's kind of like watching a car crash, or if it's because it's genuinely a little bit funny. I'm not 100% sure. It's one of those things that like you're watching it and there are references to things that you understand, so you kind of get a bit more of a, you're a bit jazzed about that because you can relate to it a little bit more. But the characters are more off kilter, like genuinely off kilter than the US Office. They're probably more akin to the UK version, that they actually do feel like a little bit like unhinged real people rather than kind of the more manicured versions in the US. But yeah, genuinely didn't expect to enjoy it and will actually continue to watch it. Yeah. Makes you think.
Is this on Stan?
Prime Video.
It's like, yeah, on Prime.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Look at them putting some
While
money
you're
in
over
the
there, you can watch your Wheel of Time.
market. I watched Decision to Leave.
Oh,
I knew that would mean something to Nathan. This is good.
amazing. That
Yes.
film shook me right to the core. Oh,
Yes. Adam, Zach, anything? Any
Never heard of
point
it.
of reference here?
No.
This is going to segue to mine very elegantly.
Did you put it into the
perfect.
Discord? Otherwise, I wouldn't
I
have seen it.
didn't, because we've established that. No, this is Park Chan-wook's, I guess, most recent film, I think. Yeah, maybe.
2022, anyway.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Pretty recent film about a detective and a widow, basically, I guess is the cleanest way you can probably give the soft pitch on that. But it was, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting from this. But I distinctly remember feeling at around the halfway point, I went, oh, okay, that was a pretty satisfying little murder mystery film. Cool. I guess I get it. I don't really understand why this got the vibe that it did, though. And then there's a whole other half of the movie that happens, and you just go like, what is happening here? Just spellbinding, deeply romantic, very funny, very uncomfortable at times. Like just so many things I wasn't ready for watching this movie. And Nathan is right. Like the ending is devastating.
Mm.
Good shit.
Mm-mm.
I like movies again. It's good.
I'm
I
intrigued.
bring this guy up
Whoa,
like once
love
every
that.
6 months. I brought him up for Old Boy in the 2000s Film of the Week, which is a film I never stop harping on about.
This is definitely a kind of film than Old Boy in some ways. I
Uh,
mean, in other ways, you know,
he makes confronting films, though.
he does.
Yeah.
This is the most palatable is the wrong word, but there's a warmth to this movie that I find very compelling. Just obviously where the conclusions lead to, that warmth is a weapon. But yeah, we'll go watch it. Decision to Leave, very good. Adam, I think you would really enjoy it.
It sounds like something I would enjoy, so I
You'd have to watch it with
100% will be
Key.
checking this out.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
The way
For sure.
I have a guilty pleasure in media. I'm a real sucker for sort of dark romantic plots. This has a very dark romantic plot that I've really, really quite enjoyed.
This movie makes you want to fall in love in problematic ways. It's just
Oh, yes. I don't know why that appeals to me so much, but I love that.
And it's just so visually odd. I don't know how I'd describe the visuals. It's
this
he
is what
knows
I was
he's
trying to
making a
pass as
movie, so
well.
he makes it as much of a movie as he can.
Yes, like very obvious editing choices, but they are like capital C choices. Like there are some transition shots in here that made me like do the Leonardo like pointing at the screen moment like over and over again. Like it is just consistently so visually arresting as well. Yeah, movies.
I get to segue off of that by going, my off topic is also a Park Chan-wook joint. It's The Sympathizer. He did a HBO show starring Robert Downey Jr. that came out last year. Robert Downey Jr. plays like 5 or 6 different roles. Basically, Robert Downey Jr. plays every antagonist in this show, and this show is about it's set just after the end or as the Vietnam War is ending. A double agent, so it's a Vietnamese, French, American. Anyway, he's playing both sides. He's dyed-in-the-wool communist, but he's very much operating for the CIA. Very much trying to steer things, you know, in the favor of the Americans, or at least give the impression that he is. And then the war ends, you know, the communists take over, et cetera, et cetera. He goes back to the US, and he's still like pulling strings and trying to get involved with a bunch of like odd characters that think the war's not over from Vietnam, and they're starting to stage like a return to Vietnam, and they're going to like retake over it. It's very odd. It's very funny. Robert Downey Jr. does heaps of improv with his villains in it, and it's just frankly fucking hilarious. And it also, Park Chan-wook, I think, directed like half. He wrote it, but he also directed like half of the series. So the first half of the series is full of those like really fun transition shots that he's so good at, and it's very visually arresting. It's on binge, I want to say. I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, I would just if someone really liked Robert Downey Jr., that would probably be the thing that I would point them towards. Like if you love Robert Downey Jr., this is essential viewing for you. Otherwise, you know, it's a great Park Chan-wook joint, and but you know, I don't think the subject matter will grab everyone as quickly. Yes, James.
I have 2 very quick questions. One,
Please.
is this Robert Downey Jr. in Oppenheimer mode or Iron Man mode?
Neither. This is a dark comedy.
No, I just meant, is he trying or is he not?
Oh, he's definitely trying. He's having a lot of fun with it.
Right.
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah,
This is very
absolutely.
exciting to hear.
This is like him after Oppenheimer going, I've got my awards now, I can just fuck around.
Excellent. Love that for him.
But
My second
yes.
question is for you specifically, though. Have you seen The Little Drummer Girl?
That's next on the list.
I cannot wait. All right. Excellent. Good.
Good.
Excited now.
We figured me out.
Yeah.
All right, take it away, Zach
Adam.
Jackson.
No,
Oh, Adam. It's 2000's Film of the Week.
It's one I prepared earlier, almost like that's how we do this. All right, my synopsis. An American actor, Bob, lands in Tokyo for an ad film and ends up meeting Charlotte, who's left behind by her photographer
lost in
husband. Shut the
translation.
fuck up, Nathan! Gradually, the two discover a friend within each other. I was so close to the end. Yes, it is lost in translation. I fucking adore this film. It's wonderful.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've enjoyed Sofia Coppola's work, so it's just
Hey,
Imagine interrupting my
Oh
fucking
my God.
synopsis for a movie you haven't even seen. You monster.
sounds like a film I should watch.
No, genuinely though, Key and I watched it maybe 3 months ago. I've seen it multiple times and I cry every time I watch this film. It is
Really?
wonderful.
Sofia Coppola
Really,
did a
really
really
great.
good film. Just a quick segue, 10 seconds. Last year, she did a biopic about Elvis Presley's wife, Priscilla, the
Mhm.
like underage and how that dynamic just so good. I think the actress that played Priscilla was the actress from Alien Romulus and Civil War, Kaylee.
Oh, really?
What her name
Yeah,
is?
right.
But anyway, fabulous job. I like Sophia, so I'd be keen to give that a go.
What a wild career trajectory she's had.
Hmm.
Crazy.
Under her father, yeah.
Yeah, well, like from being a widely hated part of The Godfather Part 3 to then becoming a very accomplished director
Very
is
much.
just a wild series of events. But yeah, I 100% would suggest watching Lost in Translation.
What
It's
genre
a
would you describe to that?
drama, a comedy drama, maybe. Yeah. There are very heavy comedic elements to it, but it's depressing in a lot of wonderful ways.
Sure. I've
Ah,
seen a lot of
such a good
somber
film.
images from that film. That's as much experience. Everyone looking a bit
Ah,
dour.
some of the stills, like you can pause the movie and just soak it in. It's so good. Movie's great.
You're
Zach,
really
you've not
young.
watched it, I take it?
On the disc wallet.
not on the Discord, my friend. Where
Not a
where
sad
can
film.
one watch it if one was looking for it?
Mate, if you were looking to watch it, you could watch it. It's on Paramount Plus.
Nah.
Everyone's favorite streaming service.
Gross. I think we rented it, so I don't know.
It's also on Amazon
Rent-
Prime, but you might have to rent it on Prime.
Yeah, rent movies. Don't be a fucking pussy and rent a movie.
Yeah.
Come back to me when you're
Rent
serious.
that license.
That's it. For 24 hours once you hit play.
That's
Ugh.
it.
Whatever.
48 for a good day, but yeah.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the WellPlayed DLC podcast. You can check out the content on www.well-played.com.au. All the reviews might be there. They might not be. Who knows? Check out the website and find out. Have a great weekend otherwise, and we will see you next week. I've got something very interesting to talk about next week.
Stay tuned.
That concerns all of us. Yay. Bye, folks.
I'll see you then.
You went full Looney Tunes at the end there, Nathan. What the fuck?